Marc, is this GM role different from the role you had before, or is it mostly a name change? What would be the difference be?
Yeah, I mean, it'll change. It'll continue to change. I think that's the big thing that we've learned over the 4 years here since NIL's been permissible. It's continuing to evolve. We want to make sure we stay at the forefront. Being able to drop a lot of the operations stuff off my plate will be huge. Allow us to forecast out better, be in a better position to be prepared for whatever situation comes our way. We won't be caught off guard by anything in the spring. So with revenue sharing, it's going to be similar, but we're going to be more prepared for it. Being able to focus on this year round.
How excited were you when Coach Card came to you and told you this is your job? Yeah,
I mean, obviously when I started in this program as a student manager back in 2011, I didn't imagine that this is where it would end up, right? So incredibly thankful and humbled by the opportunity, and credit to Coach Gard and the administration for having the foresight and making sure that we're positioned well for the future. I think this is something you're seeing kind of across the industry is, we want teams to be prepared for it, and this makes sure that we're allowed to do so.
Initially, I guess, was more overarching NIL strategy. When did you get a little bit more hands-on testing?
Yeah, I mean, I think each year that we went through it grew and grew and grew more than what we anticipated for year one. So, that chief of staff role was kind of just to transition a little bit to understand that we were doing both, the operations and the NIL, and being involved in that space and making sure our strategy was in place. But now with the house settlement, revenue sharing, we want to make sure that we're well positioned for going forward. We're ready for whatever comes in the spring and high school recruiting and international. It's become a year-round job, and it's going to allow us as a staff to be able to make sure we're prepared for the situation.
How did you navigate as a staff with revenue sharing not, being in effect at the time you're recruiting guys?
Yeah.
Making sure numbers match up and all that stuff. Can you, speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good feeling that the house settlement was going to go through. In what shape or form we weren't sure, but we felt confident, and we got direction from the league that was going to be the case going forward. So it really helped with the projections to be able to make sure that we were prepared for it. But yeah, I mean, it's still a space that we're going to have to navigate through. There's not a lot of clarity around the league of where other people stand, and a lot of hearsay and different things back and forth. But we're well positioned here with Wisconsin to make sure we're taking advantage of it.
You've talked about being prepared and how important that is without giving away state secrets. What exactly does that mean? What does the process look like to try and balance everything?
Yeah, I mean, being prepared is putting yourself through different models, different scenarios. For example, if John Tonje had another year and he was going through a draft process, okay, what does it look like if he comes back or doesn't come back? Blackwell this year, same situation. We had a good feeling that he was going to be back, but we'll be able to model that out and be able to predict out what that looks like. Okay, JB goes to the draft. What does that mean for the rest of the team, and how do we build out from there? JB comes back. What does that look like? So we're able to play these different scenarios out. Where our revenue share numbers are, we'll be able to have that forecasted out to know exactly what we have to offer, and it'll position us well for conversations in the spring.
Obviously, I understand you probably don't want to go numbers here, but kind of what are the overarching things that you're thinking about in terms of how much to pay player X versus player Y? Yeah,
I mean, as we're building rosters, we're trying to slot people in according to what we expect them to be on that team, and obviously we're going to fill the roster accordingly. If we need a starting point guard, we're going to have them slotted in a certain way. So it's going to be built out, and as you evaluate the young guys that come in, you're going to be able to get a good read on them, see where they fit into the mold here going forward. But then again, same thing. We're going to try to move it as much as we can to multi-year deals to get some more security. That's a big focus for me. As those guys that are younger, we want to make sure we get them here because we still pride ourselves on being a program of development. We want to make sure we stay true to that. So that allows us to be able to do so, like locking some of those young guys in for multiple years.
Have you
How
talked
far
to
out are you looking, for the roster?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're still talking year by year. We've got to have a good grasp on what we're going to be for next year and where we're going to go. The hope is as more multi-year deals come about, we'll be able to model that out even further and have that be in place. We're ready to go. The high school recruiting, we're going to have to feel that out as we kind of get an idea of where the young guys are and where they slot in. And then obviously the international market too. We're going to be active in all those spaces. We want to know who the players are before they become available so that we can move quickly when we're ready to make a decision.
what are some of the challenges of navigating a role that obviously is a lot of the things you were doing, but something that's never been a role in this program?
Yeah, I mean, I think just that, you're kind of figuring things out on the fly a little bit, you're still defining the role as you go. We've obviously been well positioned here and have gone through it to an extent here this past off season. But it's only going to continue to grow. Each conversation you have with an agent or a parent or different things, you're going to learn and kind of figure out what they're going to look for, what they see in an agreement that you need to make sure you address in the front end. It's a big piece that we're trying to learn on the fly and kind of figure this out. Working with Marcus in football and his experience, we're bouncing ideas off each other a lot. Just on the different conversations we're having, so that we're prepared for whatever things get thrown our way.
There's not a lot of transparency in this business, I guess.
Yeah.
What comps do you use when you're, I guess, speaking numbers with certain players?
Yeah, and that's probably one of the bigger challenges that we have. There isn't a lot of comps. There's not a lot of data out there yet for us to be able to truly model this out in a way that makes sense. I'm hopeful and optimistic that that'll come here sooner than later. Even if names are removed, so you have an idea, okay, what's a starting point guard in the Big Ten worth? That's where I'd love to see it get to, so we can get a point to understand where modeling is, so that the market's just not running crazy every year. But we have an understanding of okay, we know what to expect for our range for this position or the need we have.
Did the market stabilize at all? Because last year, obviously, way up what your guys' projections were. Did it stabilize, or were you just better prepared?
I think we were better prepared. I would lean more towards that. I think the house settlement will help stabilize it a little bit. Obviously with the clearinghouse and the NIL Go, there's going to be more not restrictions, but there's going to be more clarity around what that market value is for a person for those third-party bids. The house settlement will help clear a lot of that up, which I think will help stabilize the market.
After house, things are certainly more concrete now than they have been in what feels like at least a couple of years. But what are you doing to stay nimble in a space that's certain to change, in the next few years?
For sure, and I think that's part of the modeling we'll build out here. We got to make sure that whatever rules are thrown our way, we run scenarios for those situations. Whether that's roster caps or the salary cap differences and different things. Obviously, it's built in, and what projections are going to be here going forward on growth within the cap. But it's obviously internal as well, discussion on where we want to be and how we want to position ourselves to make sure that we're all being successful in that space.
When you kind of look back at the journey from student manager to general manager, is that kind of surreal a little bit? And kind of how do you kind of process that? Yeah,
I mean, it's really hard to put into words. It's obviously this program has treated me incredibly well over the years. I'm internally thankful for the opportunity that Coach Gard's given me to grow here personally and professionally, and it is humbling to be in this spot, and really, really thankful for the opportunity because it's a transformative time in college athletics, and I'm just excited about the opportunity to kind of be a part of it going forward.